Too much front end, too much back end, too much schmoozing, too much technical docs, you name it. Today we are going to talk about my biggest mistakes after 3 years as a front end developer. Now, if you don't know me, my name is Jake and I'm an ex-Amazon engineer, and I'm making these videos for you to show you exactly what did work, what didn't work, what I'm actively doing to earn over $100,000 a year as a remote front end developer. Now, I run frontendfuture.com. This is the fastest way for you to break into this industry. And if you're looking to get started today, go ahead and go to frontendfuture.com. I've included a link down below in the description. There's a free training for you to go ahead and get started. So without further ado, let's get into the video. All right, so we're going to talk about a few things today, all right? We're going to talk about frameworks instead of fundamentals. We are going to talk about talking tech instead of business impact. And we are going to talk about staying front end only for too long, okay? So these are kind of the three topics, and I want to share exactly what I mean by these, okay? And I think number one right here, this is one of the most important topics that it's not necessarily talked about all the time, okay? So, if you're starting to learn how to code and you don't really know what's what, and you don't have any engineers, any other friends in the industry, it can be very overwhelming because you go on YouTube, every other guru, every other person, every other engineer is telling you something different about what you should learn, what you shouldn't learn, what language is working, what language is dying, what people are hiring for, and whatever year it is you're watching the video. But the reality is, the fundamentals, especially the fundamentals of front-end development, these don't actually change, okay? So these don't actually change, and it's in your best interest to go ahead and learn those fundamentals because, those fundamentals are going to be what helps you write React, what helps you write Vue, what helps you write Next, what have you there. And these don't really change, okay? So that would be my biggest mistake, when I was trying to break into this industry, when I've been working my first few years is a lot of times it just doesn't make sense to go and learn all these new frameworks. And I say that for a couple reasons. Like one, if you have the fundamentals, picking up any new framework is going to be not trivial, right? You got to learn it kind of over time, but it's going to be a lot easier if you have the basics, the fundamentals down pat, all right? And that leads me kind of to my second point is these frameworks come and go, okay? They come and go. The same frameworks that dominated in 2005 and 2015 might not necessarily be around nowadays. If you go and search on Google, there's dozens of front-end frameworks. There's dozens of different frameworks that you can choose from. But nowadays React is what dominates. And speaking on the fundamentals not changing, okay? As a front-end developer, you're going to fall into the same patterns of work over and over and over again. It's like, can you take a Figma design from a designer and can you turn that into code? That is by and large what you will be doing as a front-end developer, is turning actual design into code. Now, obviously, there's more that comes along with that, i.e. managing state, consuming APIs, handling forms, handling form validation, handling error states, handling user interactions, user experience, things like that. But by and large, if you've mastered HTML, if you've mastered CSS, I think, in my mind, that the JavaScript's kind of trivial in a lot of cases, right? You're not writing super complex, heavy, algorithms and things like that. As long as you can work with and consume an API and you can manage state on the front ends, a lot of times, the JavaScript becomes trivial, okay? And so therefore, it's in your best interest to learn the fundamentals, all right? And another point I'll make is with these front-end frameworks, okay, they are just the paint by which, you throw onto the canvas, okay? The artist, your skills as a developer are what are going to make you way more valuable, right? So, if you're looking around and it's like, oh, X, Y, and Z job is hiring for this and that, I don't necessarily have that on my resume. Well, the reality is a lot of companies, even if you don't necessarily have framework-specific experience, they're willing to hire you on if you have relevant front-end experience. And they know in the back of their minds, or good engineers know, the truth is you can pick up a new framework pretty quickly. If you're experienced, if you know what to expect as an engineer, if you've been doing this for a while and you just have that experience working with different teams on different technologies, picking up a new technology is not the hardest thing in the world. And they're willing to pay you to kind of have that little bit of a ramp period. Now, obviously, you can do things to smooth the curve. Like, let's say you sign a new job and you're going to be working in a totally new framework you've never worked on before. Of course, you can go and take a quick Udemy. You can go and take a quick course or something to kind of brush up on those skills, all right? But to go and spend a bunch of time just learning every framework in the world, that is kind of a meaningless pursuit in my mind, okay? And what I would recommend to somebody, a few years, say, behind me, or somebody just trying to break into this industry, is just pick one and learn it, all right? Learn the fundamentals and then pick one front-end framework and learn it. And that framework today that I would recommend is React, okay? And the reason React is so good, supported by Facebook, it dominates the industry. Every new startup, it seems like, that's coming up, they build with React, okay? And so, therefore, it's got the most job opportunities. And so not only will you have that on your resume, but you'll know it, but the most important thing here that I've been into your head over and over and over again is these fundamentals are what matters, and those fundamentals are right there, okay? So let's move to number 2 here, talking tech instead of business impact. And I actually think, barring the coding stuff, this is probably the single most important lesson that I had to learn as an engineer, okay? So we're engineers, all right? We enjoy difficult problems. We enjoy solving challenging technical problems. Okay, of course, we love that. And if you sit in on your stand-ups, if you talk to other engineers, this is what, by and large, they're going to want to talk about, okay? And sometimes as an engineer, that's worthwhile. Those discussions need to happen. If you need to make a technical design, if you need to make technical decisions that are going to have trade-offs, it is important that those decisions get made properly, that they're properly thought through, the different trade-offs in terms of time, in terms of storage, in terms of cost, and things like that. It needs to happen. Those conversations need to happen. But what's more important, and what's more important for, say, your leveling up, what's more important when you're applying to jobs and so on and so forth, is how valuable are you? And what I mean by that is, what tangible business impact have you made as a result of your engineering efforts, okay? And so let me give you a couple examples to kind of paint that into your minds, all right? There's really 2 types of ways you can impact a business, all right? Can you cut costs for the business, or can you generate revenue? So let me give you an example of cutting costs, all right? So let's say you make some software system that, costs, say, $1 million a year to run, all right? It involves people, it involves software systems, it involves database, it involves servers, things like that. And the combination of all that costs $1 million per year to operate. And now let's say you, as a new engineer, you come in, you take a look at the system and you're like, hey, look, I can speed this up by 50%, all right? So I can speed this up by 50%. And what would that translate in terms of business value? Well, you would be saving the business $500,000, okay? And so, as an engineer, if you can come in and design a system that's going to save a business $500,000, wouldn't it make sense that they would be willing to pay you, say, $100,000, $200,000, or what have you, right? It's like you are profitable to them, okay? And when you're profitable to them, they want to keep you around. They're happy you're around. They don't want you to leave, right? They're willing to pay you more because you are making them money, all right? So who wouldn't want that win-win relationship? You make the business money, they pay you money, you make a great salary, you live from wherever, you work remote, whatever, right? And of course they would want to do that. It's a very mutual, it's a symbiotic relationship, right? You both benefit from being there, right? And so, as an engineer, as easy it is to focus on the technical problems and things like that, you will set yourself apart if you can turn that hat off a little bit and focus more on the business impact of what it is you're doing, okay? So on the other end of the spectrum here is generating revenue, all right? There's a few ways you can do this, but just think about it. If you go in and look at your specific business, if your business makes money by selling on the phone or selling on sales calls, what if there is a way that either one, you could bring more traffic to the websites, you could get more meetings on the calendar, you could automate your salespeople's outreach or what have you, things like that. Like if you can generate traffic, if you can bring the business money, let's say you make the business another $5 million a year, another $1 million a year, $500K a year, of course, they're going to find that super valuable, okay? And it's twofold, right? If you're able to align yourself in a way with the business that's, you're making money for them like this, it's twofold, because not only are they going to respect you, not only are they going to appreciate you a lot internally and your odds of getting promoted and leveling up and things like that improve, but if you ever jump ship, if you ever go somewhere else and you're talking to recruiters, if you're talking to these C-suite level people, all of a sudden you can talk in much stronger terms. You can be like, I built X, Y, and Z system that impacted X, Y, and Z speed or latency or cost, resulting in $500,000 savings per year, resulting in $1 million in additional revenue per year, things like this. If you can speak about your work in such a way, you're going to see eye to eye with C-suite. You're going to see eye to eye with these decision makers that aren't necessarily engineers, but need to understand what it is you're capable of. And if you can show that you have that perspective, that experience, that ability to talk in terms of what the business needs, you're going to be tremendously more valuable, right? So that's what I mean here. This would be an example of something that is not necessarily so valuable. Maybe an engineer might enjoy that talk, but if you're talking to a business person, they're going to be like, what the hell are you talking about, man? All right. So, I solve complex state management, leading in, yada, 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 I use technology, whatever. It's like most people just don't care. If they're not engineers, they just simply don't care. And I'm sure you've experienced that before, where you start talking about some complicated tech language or whatever, and their eyes just kind of glaze over. I know I certainly have. I've made that mistake over and over again. And that's why I learned this lesson. Okay. And, yeah, pretty much. If you can turn your ideas into, translate that into business needs, into business results, you're going to get paid. You're just simply going to get paid. There's no way around it. Okay. And this leads me to my last point. Okay. Staying front end for too long. This channel is Front End Future. I talk about front end almost exclusively, and it is absolutely the best way to break into this industry for a few reasons, right? One, there's a lot of jobs, and two, it is the easiest to learn, okay? Every business needs front end engineers or engineers that are focused on the front ends, engineers that are willing and able to take designs and turn them into actual code. They need that, okay? If you want to level up as a software engineer, if you want to become more well-rounded, if you want to make more money, if you want to build more complex systems and chase more and more difficult problems and just ultimately be wanted and needed everywhere, be valuable everywhere, you're going to have to build the full stack of skills, which means you need to learn things like API design. You need to learn things like security. You need to learn things like, database engineering, things like that, where you build this full suite of skills where you can go and stand up a full, project architecture. You could use different, AWS services and things like that and tie them together so that, you've built a full seamless application that's secure, that's smartly designed so that it's going to minimize cost, minimize latency, and just be the best overall experience, not only for the business, but for your customers. If you can build this full suite of skills, and it takes time, you are going to be tremendously more valuable. And this was a mistake I made, and this was a mistake that I've since learned and since been working on improving is, I thought I could just be an amazing front-end engineer and avoid back-end forever. And in some ways I could, but you put a ceiling over your head. And I don't want a ceiling over my head. I want to be able to go and do the biggest, the largest, the most lucrative work that I can find, right? And so, I've had to go in and learn some of these other skills, okay? And this is especially true if you go and work for a startup. They can't afford to hire back-end specific or front-end specific engineers. They need engineers that are willing and able to build everything because they have infinite problems. They just don't have the money in the team to be able to specialize into certain roles like that, right? If you have an engineering team of 3 or 5, right, everybody needs to be able to do everything pretty much, right? So, you got to be able to handle that API design, the database changes, AWS services, things like that, to go ahead and maximize your value as an engineer, okay? And, to actually learn these things, there's multiple ways to do it. The thing about coding and engineering, all the information is out there. The most difficult part is actually trimming down the information, trimming down to what actually matters, right? So the way I learned, the way I got the most value is actually try to build your own SaaS, right? Go and try to host it. Go and try to stand up, if you need to stand up AWS services, go and try to make a new database, make new tables, make migrations, expose a few API endpoints, try to secure it. If there's admin specific or admin privileged endpoints, tie those down, learn how it works, learn how authentication works, things like that. And what you'll find is these additional skills aren't that difficult to learn, but it just takes time. It takes reps, just like anything else in the world, okay? And so again, these higher level roles require understanding the full system so that you can consider trade-offs, so that you can consider potential pitfalls when you're building some kind of system, okay? So again, to kind of TLDR or summarize this, front-end is the fastest, it is the easiest way to break into this industry. But if you wanted to continue to level up across a decade, across a couple decades of a career, you're going to have to learn all the skills. And it's in your best interest. And quite frankly, it's just entertaining. It's just interesting, right? It's interesting stuff to learn. Okay, so again, my name is Jake. I'm an ex-Amazon engineer. I've built frontendfuture.com to help you break into this industry as a remote front-end developer, earning that salary that you want to learn. If you are ready to get started today, go ahead and go to frontendfuture.com. Watch the free training I've built for you. I've also included a link down below in the description. You can just click that, and you'll even have the option to book in some time with me. We can talk one-on-one and see how we can meet your needs, meet your goals so that you can live the life you want. All right. So again, go to frontendfuture.com. And if you're not ready to get started today, I appreciate you watching the video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. And adios.